Hey there, and welcome to the UkeStuff channel, and welcome to this UkeGuide review of the Horse HUK-23C. This is their Laminate Sapele concert ukulele. Now, to be totally honest with you, I was contacted by Horse and asked if I'd like to review this instrument, and I was confused because I had reviewed this instrument. This is their mahogany instrument versus this, which is their sapele. And there are differences there. And it took a little bit of communication back and forth before I realized that they were asking me to review a different model than the one that I had already reviewed. Now, before we go any further, let me warn you that these reviews, these UkeGuide reviews, tend to be pretty long-winded, and that's okay because you have the power of the internet in your hand. Right down here are chapters that you can fast forward and see parts of the video that interest you. And furthermore, those are also listed in the description below if you want to just click on a link to a certain part of this video. Now, ultimately in these videos, what I do is first of all, I look at subjective issues, then I follow it with objective data, what we'd call the specifications for the instrument. Then I come back with another summary statement and then a overall rating that I give these ukuleles. So let's begin. This instrument sells right now for $53. It was cheaper a few weeks ago, and again, as you know, with Amazon, prices go up and down all the time. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that most of the time you'll find this one underneath the $60 price point, but who knows? Again, with demand and other things, that could go up at some point. But right now, as this video is being filmed, it is $53. That's October of 2020. Now, with that in mind, you have to have the question of value. What are you getting here? And what you're getting is a pretty well-built, and we'll talk about that in a future category here, but it's a pretty well-built beginner ukulele that isn't overly flashy. And with that, you get kind of like the ideal starter kit. Now, if you've watched this channel, you've heard me talk about Enya and how they give you like the ultimate kit, right? Well, in this case, you get really the ideal kit for a starter. But in reality, what does a person need to start playing their instrument and to use it? Well, first of all, you get a gig bag, and it's a decent gig bag. Are there better gig bags out there? Sure. Is this one going to do the trick? Absolutely. The Horse logo is screened on. You have two backpack straps, and you have a lightly padded handle, a small front pocket, and a padded gig bag. That's really all you need. I also like this slate blue color. Gotta be honest with you, that does appeal to me, and both Horses seem to share basically the same bag. So you get a decent gig bag. You're not gonna have to go out and buy a replacement gig bag or a different gig bag unless you want to. And then you get a tuner. It's a Joyo tuner. You get a strap. And by the way, that was one of my complaints of the other Horse, was the issue of the strap. They included a guitar strap and a guitar capo. Well, you don't get that here. You get basically an ukulele strap. And then they also included a small piece of sandpaper so you can deal with sharp fret ends. And there is, spoiler alert, one fret end that's sharp here as I work with the instrument. That's not a big deal to me, but I can understand how that would be an issue for a beginner. And to solve that, they give you a piece of sandpaper, but they don't really tell you what it's for, and I didn't know if it was a piece of leather originally. Now, the Amazon listing also shows a pack of strings, and I cannot remember if a pack of strings came with this or not. I am not a fan of the strings that are on it. They're Aquila Super Nile Guts. Again, nothing against Aquila, nothing against Super Nile Guts, but I just like fluorocarbons myself. That's a personal preference, and I will always say that. So the strings that are come with it are perfectly fine, but I would like this with other strings, and that's just my opinion. So ultimately, in value, it's a pretty good value for what you're getting as a kit and for a well-mannered little starter ukulele. Nothing wrong here, really. Now, in terms of build quality, outside and inside, it's built rather nicely. Again, only a couple little things. I do have one sharp fret end, one. So with that, let's do our look on the inside of the ukulele, our ukulele dive with the internal Uke Cam. All right, let's take a look at the Horse HUK-23C ukulele. Okay, looking at the back, there's some glue here and there. There's your bottom brace. The top has a single brace running all the way down, and there's your bridge plate. Doesn't quite run the full body. You can see the two screws where the bridge is connected on the other side, and you can see the rest of the notch kerfing. Overall, it's pretty clean and pretty well done. Let's go look at the upper bout. Okay, here we are looking at the upper bout as best as we can with the space we have. There is the horizontal brace right above the upper sound hole. Here's the only problem I'm seeing is a little piece of broken wood here. You can see some glue spillage. Not a lot, just a couple really on the tail block and the net block, and there's another little glue drop right there. But overall, it's a pretty clean build. And that's our quick look on the inside of the Horse HUK-23 ukulele. All right, we're back. So overall, a really clean build. That little chip is somewhere up here on the inside. It'll never cause any problems. Couple glue dots, no big deal. So with that in mind, yeah, build quality is really quite good. Now in terms of appearance, it's very plain, isn't it? And that doesn't bother me. I don't have a problem with a plain instrument. The horse logo isn't overdone here. It does come with the strap buttons, of course, and you get that same kind of stripy sapele on the sides and on the front. I mean, it's what it's all about. The fretboard and the bridge are made of purple wood. They use a different term for it on the Amazon listing. I had to look it up, and they said purple wood. I said, okay, that I've actually heard of. So that's what you're looking at. It's very plain. Now, I do wish that it would have carried a couple of the things from the other horse. I don't mind the missing rosette, but one of the things that I thought was really cool about the original horse is that the fretboard included a horse logo at the 12th, whereas this one is just plain. And what I liked about that is it kept the horse theme going. They also did a nicer job with the headstock on this one. I kind of like the unique headstock as well. So there are some touches on the other horse, the mahogany horse, that I like better than the Sapele, but those are only minor little issues. I kind of wish they would have brought those over, but it's okay. You do what you have to do as a company, and that is what they've got with their horse ukulele. So appearance, generally pretty plain. Now, in terms of availability, there's a link on the UkeGuide that you can click to. If you want to go to the UkeGuide, you can go to ukestuff.info or ukeguide.info. Either one of those will take you to the UkeGuide where you can actually click and download the yellow sheet that gives these ratings and summarizes it on one page. But if you want one of these, they're available on Amazon through Lap Music, but it can be a little tricky to find. And they do have both ukuleles from Lap Music online, and you'll have to know which one you're buying. The mahogany one, I do believe, is more expensive at this time. Now, in terms of playability, overall, it's pretty much what you'd expect from an import ukulele. C-shaped neck, 35mm nut, pretty general string spacing. So if you have giant hands, you're not going to love it. If you like other sort of import ukuleles with a 35mm nut, it's going to be just like playing any of those as well. The one thing I will say again is that the action is pretty high at the first fret, close to 1mm there. So as a result, I know I would want to take this and will be taking that down. Action wasn't so bad at the 12th. I mean, it's actually pretty low. It's 2mm at the 12th. So I've got to be a little careful as I lower that action at the nut, but really it needs to be lower just to make it easier to play. And if you're going to buy one of these, that'd be the one thing really as a warning is just check the action at the first fret because it was a little high for my preferences. Now, in terms of sound quality, this thing is right in the middle of the road. Basically, it's not going to surprise you. It's not going to overwhelm you, but it's also not going to disappoint you. It's a warm, mellow sound. Now, part of that is the strings. Now, to me, Aquila Super Nalgut strings tend to mellow out an instrument a little bit. So some of the shimmer that I'd love to hear in this instrument isn't there, and I'd love to try this with fluorocarbon strings instead. But for these reviews, I don't change the strings. I just play the strings that are on an instrument. So as a result, the sustain is decent. It's not super. There are some overtones that pop out. But realistically, as you talk about this instrument, it's just middle of the road acceptable. I mean, it's not bad. It's not overwhelmingly a winner. It's just, it's okay. The whole thing is okay. And as a result, I would have no problem playing this as my first instrument or as a travel ukulele that I traveled with. So with that in mind, really, its sound is okay. Its sound is okay. It's not super loud. It's more towards the dark and warm side. Sustain is average. Sound is average. Um, Volume, again, not that loud, not quiet either, so really middle of the road. And that's not always a bad thing. It's not bad. I mean, there are reasons why we sell cars like Corollas, like a Toyota Corolla. So imagine this as sort of being the Toyota Corolla of the ukulele world as it comes to sound. So one of the things I like to do is I like to use the app Tonal Energy Tuner to let you see what I'm hearing. So what I do is I play the C chord and I let you see what's happening with the initial frequency of notes and response, and then what holds on with the sustain. So here we go. So what you can see there is that there's a lot of attack, the frequency is responded, and then you have a okay sustain with some overtones showing through, which is really nice to see. So I, again, would really like to see this instrument with different strings. Okay, with all of the subjective aspects covered, let's move on to the objective data or the specifications for the instrument. It is a concert instrument with a scale length of 15 inches. There are 18 frets and 14 to the body. There are side position markers with a double dot on the side for the 12th, and there, of course, are front fretboard markers too, kind of plain compared to the mahogany horse. The body style is a traditional double bout ukulele. The soundboard, back, and sides are all made of laminate sapele wood. The fretboard is made of purple heart, and the bridge is made of purple heart, and the bridge is a tie bar bridge. Now, the fretboard, according to Amazon, is supposed to be a 25-degree radius. It's really hard for me to tell whether that's true or not. I'm just going to take their word for it and say that it is. It doesn't impact my playability much on it at all, however, just so for the record. Now, the nut and saddle, I don't know what they're made of. I looked online. They could be plastic. They could be bone. Not totally sure. But the saddle is compensated. It's a traditional satin finish. The overall length is 24 inches from tip to tail without counting the strap button, and it weighs 1 pound, 1.8 ounces. The tuner type is closed gear tuners. I haven't taken off the little protective covers yet. And the action is really where some concerns occur. The only concerns really on the whole instrument. At the first fret, the action is above 0.75 millimeters and it's less than 1 millimeter. So it's right in between there. That's pretty high. I like action at the first fret to be 0.5 millimeters, so that tells you that it needs to come down a bit. Now at the 12th fret, the measurement was 2 millimeters, so nice and low there. So hopefully I don't mess up the geometry too far by lowering the action at the nut, but that's something that I'm going to have to do. The nut width is 34.95 millimeters, so about as close to 35 millimeters as you can get. The space between strings at the first fret, just something that I measure, is 8.88 millimeters between each string, 29.66 millimeters G to A at that first fret. So again, pretty standard spacing for a 35 millimeter nut. The other thing I take a look at is the depth of the instrument, of the neck, and I do that at the third fret from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck. And that measurement is 22.17 millimeters, which is also pretty common, pretty close to average for a C-shaped neck on an import ukulele. So with the objective information, the specifications covered, let's go to the summary of the instrument. I'm going to go a couple different places here. First of all, a definite shout out to those people on Ukulele Cosmos. One of the talks about my reviews is the fact that I say ukulele instead of ukulele. And that's just as a result of reading a number of things from Hawaiians who have requested that we consider saying ukulele versus ukulele. And that's kind of a nod to their request, and I'm open to that, just so you know. So whether I say ukulele or ukulele, I certainly don't judge anybody. I'll just take them where they're at. But I'm not trying to be pretentious in what I say or what I'm doing. I'm just trying to honor the requests of some Hawaiians. If you want to know more about that, by the way, you can see the writings of Brad Bordessa. I think he does a pretty good job of talking about why he would encourage people not from Hawaii to consider calling it an ukulele instead of ukulele. And I'll just leave it at that. Now, back to the instrument. Again, total surprise to me, not expecting, totally confused, asking me to review this instrument and then me not understanding why, because again, the horse instrument, the other one, hasn't been out that long, and it wasn't that long ago that I reviewed it. So it was kind of fun to get this one and to see what a company does differently. Now, I haven't mentioned yet in this video that Horse is also a part of the same larger company as Kemis and Acklot. And again, I've got a few of those instruments around my house as well. And overall, I think that company does a pretty good job. My friend Rachel Webley with the Ukulele Wales website and Ukuleleans, Rachel has a lot of K-Mice ukuleles in her collection and thinks rather positively about them. Are they $500 or $1,000 ukuleles? The answer is no. Are they serviceable, playable instruments? The answer is yes. I feel like Acklot is the next step up. So I think like Acklot is sort of like the Lexus brand there. The K-Mies would be sort of, again, like a Corolla or a Camry, thinking about Toyota products. And then, again, this Horse brand is doing its own thing with its own sort of levels of instruments. So this one, again, I think is kind of a Corolla is a really good summary of what it would be. It's really overall well put together. It comes with really the ideal kit for a beginner, what you really need, and it's a nice playable ukulele. My absolute minimal gripes, again, are the action at the first fret, perhaps some glue on the inside. I'm really not making a big deal of that. And I'm not even making a big deal of that one little chip that I saw on the inside. Most people would never even know that was there. You'd have to go inside an ukulele with a camera to see what was going on there. And how many people are honestly going to do that? But you probably wouldn't, or other people that you know probably wouldn't. So with that in mind, I would definitely recommend this as a beginner ukulele for people, for a student that's interested in instrument, and again, a very plain sort of basic package. Now, I'm going to give a rating for this instrument and then talk a little bit about the other horse instrument too. So let's talk about the rating for this instrument. I rate instruments on a level of 1 to 5 ukuleles. And with this instrument, I think it's a solid 4. It's really well built. It's got a nice tone, but it's not earth-shattering anyway. Again, it's the Toyota Corolla of an ukulele, which is not an insult. Definitely something that pretty much anybody could pick up and start enjoying the sound of what they're doing, enjoy playing it. But again, it's the middle of the road serviceable ukulele that will probably last you your entire life with very little maintenance. So 4 ukuleles. Now let's get to the other question of the mahogany version versus the Sapele version. I like the sound of the mahogany better, but this one also has the D'Addario purple titanium strings, which have a different tonal quality than Aquila Super Nile Guts. So it could be with a quick change of strings that I might like the Sapele better, but I have to review based upon the strings that are on the instrument. The other things that I like about the mahogany version are the headstock and the different shape of the headstock, and I like the integration of the horse better than the engraved, but I like the integration of the horse as an inlay, and I like the integration of the horse in the fretboard as well. I kind of liked how they carried that through. It wasn't sort of in your face. The other thing that the mahogany has are sort of those white ABS strips on the bridge, which keep the bridge from denting or chunking as you change strings, and that happens. It's probably not going to wear out the bridge with or without that, but it was a nice touch on the bottom of the mahogany. So if you asked me right now, as they come out of the package, would I recommend the mahogany or the Sapele? Out of the package, I would recommend the mahogany, which was also set up better overall at the first fret than this one. Yet again, with a string change, that could change. So I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to say about the Horse HUK-23C Sapele Laminate Ukulele. I hope you are having a great day, and I will be back soon with some more uke stuff for you.